Savvy Central Radio is proud to host our 4th symposium. Join us in our new multi-part speaking series called Mastering the Influence Game, starting this fall in New York City. Every 2 months for the next several months, we'll be bringing you global cutting-edge experts in the field of influence, marketing, and media, designed to give entrepreneurs and small business owners the tools and strategies to take their business to the next level. To register and book your ticket today, go to masteringtheinfluencegame.eventbrite.com. Our guest today is Rasmus Lindgren. Rasmus is 36 years old and lives in Denmark with his family. He is the author of the Lifestyle Business Rockstar, Quit Your 9-to-5, Kick Ass, Work Less, and Live More, which is a guide to prioritizing your life and achieving work balance by starting a lifestyle business. A lifestyle business is easy to set up, small in scope, simple in scale, and secondary to your life goals. Rasmus teaches how to break free of your 9-to-5 job. To find out more, visit his website at www.lifestylebusinessrockstar.com. Hi, Rasmus. Thanks for coming to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
I'm fine, Christina, and thank you for having me here on your show.
Thank you, Rasmus, for joining us. What I really love about your book is you offer real step-by-step solutions showing business owners how they can create the life and business of their dreams. To start, can you tell our audience a little bit about how the writing of your book came to be?
Well, first off, it's kind of, my own little personal project that at some point I really wanted to write my own book. But it was also because I started working less and less, and people around me just kept asking me what I did and you get the question a lot. So what do you do? And people always tend to assume that you will answer with what you're working with or what your profession is. And I had a hard time, answering that question. So it was, I just needed something to, to pour all these thoughts into and be able to explain to people what it is I was doing. So I wanted to answer that question, of course, I got. And also, as I said, it was a small personal project. Well, not so small it ended up being, but it was a personal project for me that I really wanted to do.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating, Rasmus. You mentioned also in your book that most people are operating under the old myth or model of business and life, such as going to school, getting a job, saving, working hard, and one day retiring to enjoy their life. Why doesn't this model work?
Well, I think it's because it's just something that we've been sold that this is the way it has to be. And nobody has really, challenged this myth, as you say, because I believe it is a myth. Now, I'm not telling people not to go to school or anything like that, but we are being sold this that we pretty much built on the assumption that there's nothing that we would rather do with our time and our life than going to work. And once we've lived this full life and we've worked our asses off, I hope I can say ass on your show, but then we can start living the life we truly want once we have 2 false hips and we're 60 or 70 plus or whenever we stop working. So I think that if we can somehow, change the life so we don't directly depend on the job, and instead of tuning it over so we focus more on our life, I think that's a really great direction to go in. So of course the term work-life balance, and I really don't like that term because I think it's flawed. It should be life-work balance. It shouldn't be work first, right? It should really be about our lives, our families, our friends, our hobbies, and then secondly it should be about our work.
And I don't know about you, Rasmus, but when I was in corporate, a good many people were not working hard. They were no, they weren't. They were existing. And what it is, they were very miserable with their lives. So they would go to 9 to 5 and put in as much as they could possibly get away with so they can go home and call it quits. And to spend the next 60 years or 50 years of your life doing that, to say, oh, now I can have fun, it's pretty sad existence. Now, I personally think that, hey, if you want to do a 9-to-5er, that could be an awesome career and an awesome life for you as long as you realize that you make your life. You have the choice to make your life or not make your life.
Yeah, I mean, here in Denmark, I think we we're being celebrated as the most happy people in the world. And we've been that for a couple of years in a row, I think, actually. But we're also some of the people who are working less than most people, I think. If you just, get employed by a company and you haven't been there or anything like that, just get hired by a company, you typically get between 5 or 6 weeks of vacation time.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's a lot. Plus, we get all these benefits from if your kids are sick, then you can just, stay home and take a sick day on behalf of your kids and stuff like that. So I'm not quite sure if there's correlation between the two, that we don't work as much and we're more happy as a people in general, or if that's just a wrong correlation to make.
No, I see what you mean. But I think that would make a big difference. I think people here kind of feel, and this is what I've observed going to work in the past, is that people, it's like they check in on Monday to go to jail, and then on Friday they get to check out for the weekend and go home and enjoy life. And it would be interesting if we could change our model here in the United States and see that these worker bees are your assets. And let's treat them as such. Let's give them time off when a child gets sick or such, so that you would build loyalty not only between you and your employees, but the employees to you. And they would be excited to come in because they know that my boss would have my back and my company would have my back. So if something happened to my husband, my kids, I could do what I have to do. It's not just about the work.
Exactly.
You're very right about that. It should change from
work-life balance. I would rather have, life-work balance, that you concentrate when you're building your life, that you focus on your life first and then say, well, how can work fit into this?
That makes total sense.
Instead of the other way around, where you tend to, say, okay, we have to do this work, let's say 50 hours a week. Now, when can we spend time with our kids? When can we, see families and friends? When can I work on this hobby, restoring old bikes or whatever your hobby is? But I was in corporate world as well. I was an IT consultant for, I think 13 years or so. And I was working really hard because at that point I didn't have kids, I didn't have a family, and some people might even say I was making good money. But if you know anybody in the IT industry, you also probably know that you can always work more, and there's always another big project. So, I mean, I didn't know what to do at that point as well. I was living this life as well, and just assuming that it was the way it has to be until, I really got kids, and that made me want to change my priorities more and be able to spend time with them while they were young.
I don't think there's anything that changes your life faster than having a family. And yeah. Your book also mentions you can have a rock star life by creating a lifestyle business. You mentioned there are 4 traits to creating the lifestyle business. What are these traits?
This is just, a way of identifying what is a lifestyle business, because normally if you just go for, a normal employee and you go to starting a business and becoming an entrepreneur, if you're looking at a business and becoming an entrepreneur in the classic sense, this usually involves that you have to work even more than you did when you were employed, right? And you have a longer term. So a lifestyle business is really something in between the two. It's something in between being an employee, where you trade your time for money, and in between you're building what you can call a, quote, real business, where you're trying to build it as big as possible and also spend 60, 70-hour weeks. So in between that, we have the lifestyle business. And the traits of that is that, first off, it should be simple to set up. So it shouldn't require that you have a lot of resources, say you have a lot of money. It shouldn't require you buying a franchise, anything like that. You shouldn't have a bank account with a lot of money, and you shouldn't be able, or you shouldn't have to go down into the bank and get a loan for that. So it should be simple to set up, something that doesn't require you to be a brain surgeon, anything like that. So it might seem simple and it might seem easy, but of course there is some work in this. But just from, comparing it to a classic business, this is the first trait, simple to set up. The second trait has to be small in size. And here again, if you're trying to build a company and you want to do an IPO in, let's say, 5 to 10 years, and you want to do an IPO and you want to make $100 million, that's probably a little harder to do than building a business that will generate you, let's say, $50,000 a year. So that's what I mean with small in size. Of course, you're welcome to go out and build a really big business, but it's just so less complicated, I would say, to create a small business. And it's much easier getting, $50,000 a year rather than creating a business that will generate you, let's say, 1 million or 2 million or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So this is perhaps not so classical, because I know you in the States, you really want something to be, as big as possible and
Mm-hmm.
and the number one in your industry and all of that. And this is more like stepping a little bit backward and saying, I'm just happy taking a piece of the pie here,
Mm-hmm.
a really big pie, and taking a small piece of it because it will generate me enough money to live my life. That was the second trait. Now, the third trait is that you have to have some kind of scaling built into this. If you want to cut down on your work, it's not a good idea to, just continue selling your time for money.
Mm-hmm.
If you continue as an employee where you trade time for money and you just continue doing like that, let's say doing consulting, and I'll be frank, I'm also writing that in the book. I'm doing a few months of the year consulting, so I'm still trading my time for money
Mm-hmm.
a few months of the year, but that doesn't scale. Problem with this is you can't sell more of your time. You can, of course, raise your hourly rates a little bit, but there's also a maximum on how much you can raise your prices.
Mm-hmm.
So you really want something in your business that can scale, something that where you can make more money without you being directly involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some mechanics of the business. And the last trait, we've already talked a little bit about that. I want this business to be secondary to your life. And that is a bit controversial. I guess that's a controversial point because, as we talked, it's usually, work first and then life.
Mm-hmm.
But I want your life to be your number one priority and then business. So if we could sum this up, at least with my definition of a lifestyle business is really something that should support your desired lifestyle.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, yes. And that's just the perfect way to put it. And I liked what you said prior about not trading your time for money. Because earlier you had mentioned how when people go out there and they either are coaching and such, you're only 24 hours in a day. There's no way you can, and you can't charge $1 million an hour. So that you get to a point where you just have to scale it up and not just keep it at just I'm going to work for you for per hour basis. What would be your suggestion to someone out there who is now working maybe as a consultant or a coach doing a per hour basis and can't seem to find a way to scale it up? What would be your advice for them on that?
I mean, I would probably define some kind of product. The good thing about a product is it's something that you can box and you can automate in large. So for coaches and consultants, you could be doing online programs. That's one of the business models I mentioned in the book, is doing informational products.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a consultant and you have clients, or if you're a coach and have clients, you're probably saying the same things over and over to them. So if you can extract that into some kind of framework and then perhaps record some videos, record some audios, you could either opt to do a DVD set, or you could do it an online program where people could sign up. Because then you could be paid per client that signed up, but you wouldn't have to trade your own time in order for this to happen. Right now, I'm helping a friend who has a rather good speaking business, and he's making good money doing speaking gigs.
Mm-hmm.
But he's reached, this maximum of how many speaking gigs he really wants to do a year, and he don't want to travel all the time. So right now, we're trying to bring his message onto, an online platform and do an online program for him. So that's one way for if you're a consultant or a coach to think of products. So try to productize your knowledge.
I like that, Rasmus, because a good portion of the listeners actually are coaches, consultants, marketing strategists, that type of thing. And I see some of them will have on their website like one big product, get this for free and you can get an audio of my blah, blah, blah tip. But very seldom do I see them have multiple products and tangible products that people could pick up and take from them. But what would also be your advice for someone who's, say, been a coach, but they have not a big base of customers, but enough to keep them going. But how do they monetize and get people to want to go out and buy their tangible product?
I tend to focus on going into markets that are already there and going where the customers are. There's, of course, the classic way of trying to build your own audience, and that is by, say, giving people something for free if you get their email address, because then you can market to them. And we all know that you won't buy the first time you hear a message. You need to hear the message several times before you buy. So, that's a classic, and I would recommend that everybody got an email list or email subscription list and gave them something for free. That could be a small ebook or something like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But the second thing is that you need to go out where your clients are. And that was one of the things I did with one of my businesses, that I went into an online forum we have here in Denmark with a lot of entrepreneurs. And I saw they were all asking for the same thing. They all wanted, well, not all of them, but a lot of them, they asked for how they got started with e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
They all wanted this e-commerce site set up, but they didn't quite know what to do. And a lot of the existing agencies, they were offering solutions starting at, say, $10,000 and up. So I thought, well, if I can provide people here with cost-efficient solution with a low price and something that was just done for them. So I actually, instead of doing consulting on e-commerce, I designed a fixed product that only had one price. Because then I could say, you get this, this, and this, and that. You don't get this, and this is the price. And I went into that forum with that product, and the first month in that business, I made $2,000, and it took me like a week to set up. So I would probably try to do the same thing, find out where people are, the potential customers or clients, and then design a product for them instead of coming with your product to the marketplace or wherever the people are. Try to listen to what their problem is, and if nothing else, at least adjust your marketing to that message, to what you're hearing from your potential customers.
I love that. And you did indeed mention to listen to your customers and go where they want to go and what their needs are. And I love that because I made that very same mistake when I got started, not listening to my clients, trying to give them or force feed them what I thought they'd most desire, and was getting pretty dismal results. And right now we've received since January probably a good portion of people wanting to find out how to do their own podcasting show. So we are now in the process of working on just that, a product that our customers are really asking for. So that's a really good tip, Rasmus.
We can do a small test here, because if you have a spouse like that, there's probably something you would like to have your spouse change in his or her behavior. And we all know, if you've been with your spouse for a little while, you can't change his or her behavior. You can change your own behavior, but it's really, really hard to change someone else's behavior. So that is the same thing when you're offering a product to a market. You can't change their behavior unless, of course, you have like several $1 million and you put an ad on, Super Bowl or something like that. Then you can change behavior with a new product or something like that. But if you don't have millions of dollars in ad money that you can use to change people's behaviors, to get them to drink some kind of diet soda or something like that, then you need to go where your potential customers are and listen to what they want and design what they want.
Good analogy. Makes total sense.
Not that I've ever tried to change my girlfriend, of course.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. And you're quite right. It makes a lot more sense to really change your own behavior than look to change the behavior of anyone else, because that is a lot harder. And it just makes sense to give people what they desire and what they need, and where their pain is, wherever they're having difficulty in their lives or in their business, give them what they need and what you can help them with your specific talents and gifts. So tell us about how you conceived of your first lifestyle business. How did that come about for you?
Well, first off, I tried a lot of different things, and it's always hard when you're starting out and you have no idea what to do. So I looked in a number of different directions, and I think in the beginning I had really a lot more failures than I had any successes. But at some point, I decided that, I wanted to build an e-commerce business. I had a background in IT, so I thought, how hard can it be? So I just needed to find some specific products that I wanted to sell. I also found the products, but I couldn't get the agreement that I really wanted with the product with the company that was selling these products. So I just put the idea on the shelf and said, well, that wouldn't fly. But then, I started doing some research on the whole e-commerce game. And that was, when I started to seeing all these other people, as I mentioned, asking about this and wanting to start their own e-commerce businesses as well. So I thought, well, I know something about IT. I just did a little bit of research into this specific e-commerce system. So now I also knew a little bit about this e-commerce system. And I knew a little bit about outsourcing because I've been doing outsourcing beforehand. So the whole thing of putting together an outsourcing process with someone else delivering these e-commerce stores for me, that was something I thought I could do. So, that was when I sat down and designed this business, and I spent less than a week on it because I just had to have a website and I have to have a logo, and that cost me, I think it was $63, just getting the website and the logo. I just chose a done for you template and installed that because aesthetically challenged, so I can't do anything that looks good. So I just, bought I think it was a $13 template, installed that, and got a logo done for $50 on Elance. And now you can go on, Fiverr.com and get a logo for $5. So I could probably have done it even cheaper today. So I spent these some 60 some dollars, and what took me the longest time was really, writing the text on the website. And then I also had to, of course, have to find the supplier. So that took a little bit of time as well. As I said, in the first month, did $2,000. And I thought, well, that was easy. So I just scaled a little bit after that to get it up and running. And that was back in, I think it was 2009, my first business there. So to summarize, I really took some of the strengths that I had, something about, knowing about IT processes, having done a little bit of outsourcing in the past. But it's not like I could really use much of my technology understanding because this system was on a completely different technology than what I was working on. So it's not something that if you don't, have any technology understanding, something that you couldn't do. This is just some kind of service company where I have outsourced the actual production of the product to someone else in Eastern Europe.
And what I'm getting there, and I'm liking this message, is that a good portion of people I've talked to have spent loads of money on their business, and I did this too in the beginning of my business, that you feel you have to go out and get the best website for several thousands of dollars, the best business card, you name it, and before you know it, you've spent several thousands of dollars and haven't made a penny in your business yet. And what I'm liking about your message here is you didn't have to spend a lot of money to get started and to start making money. Now, I know one question that might come through to from some of our listeners is, how did you get the people to come to your website? Because there's a couple people, business owners I know, that actually own an online business, but they're having problems bringing people over to purchase. What would be your advice to them?
That is always a problem because you feel that you have the best offering in the world, but no one is coming. If you build it, they will come. That's just flawed. So of course, I've already mentioned the strategy of going where your customers are and being active there. If that is an online forum or if that is, Facebook groups or whatever it is, being where your customers are and positioning yourself as the expert. Because soon I was this expert on this system and I didn't know the system. I just had a business selling this stuff and it was someone else that was an expert on it. But people started asking me questions because they saw me as an expert and really wasn't. I was just, the guy selling this stuff. So that's one strategy. Another strategy is, of course, you're doing good old search engine optimization, but that is a long-term strategy and it requires a lot of time. So you can do that, but you probably want to do something else in the meantime. I've also recently started, selling through affiliates. So if you can factor that into your pricing model, that you can have someone else selling your product or service. I actually raised my price a little bit for the e-commerce business in order to have some room to pay affiliates if they sold an e-commerce store on my behalf. So having someone else sell your product, if you can give them, 10, 20 or 30% of the business, then you can have someone else selling your product. And I think that's an easy strategy if you're not in a market where you have really low margins on your prices. If of course you're only making $1 on a product and you have to sell 10,000 of them to make anything, it's probably not a good idea to give an affiliate $10 on a price where you make more one. So but factor that into your pricing. Another thing you, of course, can do, but that again, it depends on your product, is doing AdWords. But doing AdWords is really, really hard. So I wouldn't just recommend jumping into it. Good thing about AdWords is, and also any other kind of online advertising, is that you can directly track if you're making money or not. If you just pay for clicks, and big companies do this, they just bid on their own brand and pay, like, let's say, $10 for a click, but they just do that because they've heard they have to do it. But if you can set it up so you can see exactly how much is a click costing you and how well does that convert, and in the end, how much do I make on that $1 investment?
Mm-hmm.
If you make just $1.10, then you should just ramp up your budget and just do a ton of more ads. But if you're only making, let's say, 90 cents on that $1 investment, then you should probably change something in your AdWords setup. So the good thing is that you can track everything with AdWords, but the bad thing is that it requires some insight to it, and I wouldn't recommend just jumping into it if you didn't have any training in it.
Yeah, do a bit of homework before you go there.
Exactly.
I like what you said prior, Rasmus, about positioning yourself as the expert. Early on, I did what a good portion of coaches, consultants out there did, is that you just attach yourself to your computer. You feel safe. You start talking to people here and there. And before you know it, you're doing quite a bit of nonsense on Facebook and other social media without I mean, that's what I found. I'm just having chit-chats with people all day long and really not doing business or, talking about business, building business. And what it really took is going out there and, as you said, finding out where your customers are and positioning yourself as an expert, but being around them. So I started going to networking events, going to places, workshops where my customers would be. And I think that's something to also mention, that not only position yourself as an expert, but make sure that you are physically around, at times with your customers as well as online, because you can really get trapped into the idea that I can just do it from home, everything from home.
Yeah. And be a little bit strategic with it, right? I mean, you shouldn't just go on Facebook. If you go on Facebook, at least go there with a purpose on saying build relation or whatever, or build relation with the right people or something like that, right?
Exactly.
I tend to think a lot about this either consumer or producer mindset. Am I consuming something that someone else has produced, or am I producing something that someone else can consume?
Ooh, I love
so
that.
I mean, so every time I've spent a little bit too much on Facebook or a little bit too much on Netflix or anything like that, I tend to think I have to be a producer.
Exactly. That's a good tip there. And what's on the horizon for you and your business next year?
Well, I have a new business that I really wanted to get off planet. So that is actually an informational product, and that is for a specific subset of project managers in a given industry. I won't mention it here on the show because it's probably not relevant to most of your listeners, but basically training project managers in this specific industry. And for this, it's also a small tip, is that in that industry, I know nothing. So I have a subject matter expert who has done all the content and knows about this and has been working for this with a long time. And I'm more about getting the marketing done and setting the technical platform up. So again, this is something you can also do if you want to do an informational products, but don't have the idea to what it should be that you should sell. So we want to ramp this up a little bit. We have a few customers right now, but we need to ramp it up because we're in a really big market with a lot of money being spent. So we feel we can ramp it up. Of course, I have young kids, so I need, of course, to spend a little bit of time with them. And we're going to Thailand, as we always do in the winter time here in January, February.
Awesome. I'm a little envious when I saw your pictures in Thailand.
It's a fantastic place. Have you been there?
Not yet. Not yet.
You need to go there. Yeah.
Someday I will. But, I wanted the audience, before we leave here, to find out how they can get in touch with you, get your awesome book. Again, the Lifestyle Business Rockstar. Quit your 9-to-5, kick ass, work less, and live more. And where they can find out to work with you if they want to get in touch with you and work with you as well.
Absolutely. You can go directly to lifestylebusinessrockstar.com. You can at least find out where to get the book. Right now, I'm actually, giving away a few copies if you want to pay shipping and handling, just to get the message out and do a little bit of marketing for it. But if nothing else, you can also find it on Amazon. But if you go to, Lifestyle Business Rockstar, you can, right now at least, there's still a few copies left that I'm giving away.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And also you can always find me, and again, I hope I can say this on your show, but it's my blog's name. It's retiremyass.com. So
I love it.
Yeah, sorry for that. Sometimes gets me into trouble. So that's probably where you can find out what I'm up to right now.
Awesome. Well, everyone, please go check out the Lifestyle Business Rockstar again. Quit your 9-to-5, kick ass, work less, and live more. I love that title.
Thank you, Christina.
Well, before we leave here, what would be your last words of advice for our listeners out there?
I actually have a quote I'm thinking a lot about
Hmm?
days. I hope I get it right, but if not, someone probably correct me anyway. And it's a quote by Steve Jobs. And he said something about everything around you that you call life was made up by people that are no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it, and you can build your own things that other people can use. And I think that's powerful because we get to think about all these things we have in everyday life, and we think everybody's smarter than us and we can't do this for ourselves. But I really think that we can all do this. We can all take action and do this for ourselves and change our lives.
I just heard that quote this weekend, Rasmus, and
Fantastic.
it is so true. We always think that these people who create things are way better than us, way smarter than us, and they're not. They are individual people just like us, and we all are given our own God-given talents and gifts. And it's awesome that you are out there living your dream and giving your gifts and talents to the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Christina.
Well, it's been awesome having you on Savvy Central Radio, and please do come back and let us know how your business is doing in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Tune in this Friday, September 6th at 1 p.m. Eastern, where our guest will be Bob Berg, the Go-Giver.